Welcome to Sports Geek, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host, who believes the best halftime show involves a data dashboard, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. I'm Sean Callanan, and welcome to episode 387 of Sports Geek. On this week's episode, I chat with Dani Brown. She's the manager for CRM and email marketing at the Oklahoma City Thunder. Remember, all episodes are available at sportsgeekhq.com. If you've left a review on Apple Podcasts, I really do appreciate it. There's over 100 Apple Podcast reviews worldwide. Whether it's a 5-star rating or a few kind words, it is all very much appreciated by myself. And don't forget, please follow and stalk Sports Geek on all channels: LinkedIn, Instagram, X, and Facebook. That's where we do share snippets from the show, highlights from the show, and it's a good way for you to share with your colleagues. Don't forget, you can always reach me on socials at Sean Callanan on most channels, and you can also contact me via email, sean@sportsgeekhq.com. I love working with podcast guests and listeners. If there is something that I can help you with your digital team and to maximize your efforts from a digital point of view, please get in touch. Now, please enjoy my chat with Dani Brown from the OKC Thunder. Very happy to welcome Dani Brown. She's the manager for CRM and email marketing at the Oklahoma City Thunder. Dani, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's nice to be here and chat with you again and see you virtually after seeing you in person for a little bit.
Exactly. I always start the podcast asking people how they got their start in sports. What about yourself?
So I am a big pro networking. So I actually went to a Tulsa Shock, which is a WNBA team that doesn't exist anymore. But I went to their career fair and I handed out my resume to a bunch of people looking for sales and like guest relations jobs. And I said, I want to be in data. And they all looked at me a little bit crazy. And so I thanked the speaker who, Scott Loft, who is my VP now. And he was speaking and I said, hey, this is what I want to do. And he said, we're hiring a part-timer, send me your resume. And I wrote down his email as fast as humanly possible. And I started part-time 3 weeks later and then full-time at 6 days after graduating college. So it's kind of really quick, but I tell people network. Like you've got to get in front of the faces. You have to make connections to get into sports, and that's the one connection I needed.
Well, that covers off my last question. Normally, that's my last question. What's your advice for people to get into sports? And your origin story is that advice.
It's the best advice. I've heard a lot of different stories, but I feel like they always lead back to connections and who you can either meet or know. Now with LinkedIn, you can just connect and chat there. But whatever it is, getting that kind of foot in the door.
So you say data, I say data. What drew you to the world of data?
To be honest, I really liked math. I'm science, English, reading, history were never really my best subjects. And a high school math teacher, my calculus teacher, said, hey, they're starting to blend some of those, the math and sports. And she knew I liked sports. So I was a manager of my basketball team in high school. And I thought I was going to be this amazing team side. I thought I'd be on the team side. And then as I kind of learned to grow in sports and then different movies coming out and different things where it's no, this could be used for business, I decided that would be the better route for me and kind of went that direction in college.
And so then that first role at the Thunder was in that business analytics space?
Yeah, it was before it was business intelligence. It was called data operations. But I actually really did more email marketing toward the beginning. So even though I had a stats degree, the email marketing piece was in that department. And so it just made sense for me to do coding and send out emails and pull lists at the time. But that's kind of where I started and then kind of grew into CRM a few years after that.
So, you said you were attracted to data, and data means a lot of things to different people, even inside an organization. When someone says data to you, what does it mean to you?
To me, it's it sounds funny, but it's almost, I kind of blend the marketing and the data together. So to me, I kind of see all these data points of people. And I just think like, how can we connect them all to make them get to the end goal? So for me, it's almost like a web. I see kind of more of a spider web of just different data points and trying to figure out how we can get to the end goal, which for us is getting people either watching the game, at the game, buying a ticket, going to a camp, whatever that may be. It's figuring out the data points to get there.
And so often on the podcast, when I'm talking to data folk like yourself, they discuss the famed CRM journey. We're on this journey. There's no end point. Where do you think you are and OKC and your team are in? What part of the CRM journey are you at?
Yeah, I feel like we have a lot of different ideas, but it's when you can actually get them put together. So I feel like we're really good at getting, for now, at least getting the ticket buyer journeys and those kind of very mainstream. I think it's really figuring out like merchandise and then putting in youth and then trying to figure out, I think with the Thunder especially, it's an interesting because we're a newer organization, right? We're like 16, 17 years. And so we don't have that kid that like grew up. Like I didn't grow up. I'm from Oklahoma. I didn't grow up a Thunder fan. So it's figuring out how to get that next generation in who literally like was a baby when the Thunder came. So how are we getting them in the door? How are we making these lifetime Thunder fans get into the door, kind of get that fandom? Whereas you're also converting some people that have been in Oklahoma a long time that maybe followed a different team. So I think it's actually a really fun time for us because we have this almost like youthful journey to figure out that some teams just don't have that problem because they've been around so long.
Yeah, you don't have that historical fan base of, the Celtics or the Lakers that have got, ticket holders that have been there for 50 years and their children are automatically fans. So, I mean, like you just said, like there's a lot of teams that are on this, youth strategy. But that's sort of almost part of your whole strategy because you're still in this identifying new fans.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. We're at a very weird spot right now where we can actually get these people in that can actually start spending their money with us. And so trying to figure that out, not just the fans that said, hey, we're here to support Oklahoma, but really these lifetime fans and creating that kind of legacy. So we're really at that peak where we can start doing that.
And one of the things that data does give you is some assurity of who you can communicate with, and it's sometimes not affected by what's happening on the court, whether the team is winning or whether the team is losing. But how does your CRM strategy change, when you've got a, very successful team like you did in the last season that are doing great things on the court? How does that change, when the team's not performing?
Yeah. So I mean, I've been there 10 seasons. So I've been there through eras where we were really good and eras where we were really bad. And I feel like it's definitely when there are times when there's a lull on the court, we're working harder. So we're being more creative. To your point of journeys, like you can have a couple journeys just running in the background when the team's doing well and people are calling and they're buying tickets. And as a CRM side, you're not actually having to be very creative. But when you get to that point, then you're getting to the creativity. How can we piece a package together? Where are we finding people? Like what needle in the haystack are we missing? We get to do a little. We also work with the G League team, the Blue. So we get to do a little bit of experimenting with them, which is great for us. We love to sell tickets and support them. So some of the things we try with them, we try to duplicate, which is really great. But we are able to kind of play around a little bit on that kind of side when we have the time. But yeah, when there is a lull, we're busy. It's just constantly like new ideas. Where's the people? Where's the data points? To your point, like trying to find the web. The web gets a little bit more sparse where you're trying to figure out who to reach out to.
And then on the other side, when you are winning, like last year, you've got higher demand, more, and so you're still in that. Well, we're still going to capture these new fans that have just come on board, that are just following this young and up and coming team. Even though there's tickets are scarce and you're not moving so many things financially, you still want to be building that database. So does that sort of become the focus as your ticket inventory depletes and those kind of things?
Yeah, we and I don't know if you you need to come to a game if you haven't. But we're really known for our guest experience. So we really move over if we don't have tickets to sell, or that's kind of not our main focus. Our group turns to experience. So at that point, it's how can we get people opening the emails, making sure they know to be there early, what kind of tactics, or can we have a little fan area where people come and make sure the parking experience is smoother? So we kind of really geared more toward experience when we're not looking at the ticketing side. We work with almost every department except for about like 6 or 7 at this point. So we are working with marketing to make sure we're hitting the right. Maybe it's a neighborhood we're throwing T-shirts out, right? Like it's all these different things, but we kind of gear more toward experience when we don't need to be heavy on the ticket side at that time.
And so, when you go to conferences, and we caught up recently at Seat, a lot of the times on the panels, they're talking about the latest and bright and shiny, and it's social media, and email, isn't talked about as much as I think it should be. And, you can hear the passion in your voice. What excites you about what you can do with email?
Yeah, so I will say it's definitely one of those that isn't the new shiny toy, but it is by far means like one of the easiest ways to get out there. I mean, as much as like text marketing is great, there's a lot of hoops. As much as any type of like app push, anything like that, you have to have all these different things turned on. So it's one way where we can really connect with our fans. We can do a lot of dynamic. I mean, there's so many things. If we want to do it by zip code, if we're trying to do it by favorite player, really target them, to your point with the youth. If we know they have youth, maybe we're selling them a youth jersey instead of selling them something else. So we're able to hit so many people and personalize more on kind of that one-to-one targeting. Whereas some of the other platforms, in my opinion, they can fall short. Or again, are we really reaching them because they have things turned off or turned on or haven't opted in? So it's just the easiest way to get out there. I think the other thing, which we kind of talked about a little bit, we're trying to figure out youth, but we have a nice fan base. Our main fan base is a little older. And so they like email and they like interacting, and that's an easy way for them to interact. So we want to be able to hit all the different kind of cultures and populations and different people. And so we have to be able to use them all, and they all have to sync, right? They all have to look the same. So we want to have the same look and feel so that the person that is getting an email, they may see a very similar look to what a text would look like, but we know that those are two different people opening them.
And from talking to some people who are in that email space and the data space, they have to also be the gatekeeper for that, request. You might, because you said you're 7 or 8 different departments, and they're all coming to you with, "Hey, Danny, we just want to send out an EDM, or can we just send it to everybody because I just really need these results." How do you negotiate that process, internally to say, actually, this is much better if it's sent to less people who are actually interested in this? How does that sort of internal process go at the Thunder?
Yeah, so there's kind of a twofold to that. I think a big piece of that is education. So we really try to not only lead them in the right direction of saying, hey, if you're wanting to reach the right people, we don't want people to unsubscribe, kind of that very surface level education, but we take it a step deeper. So I want them to know that like this can hurt the domain. If we hurt the domain in Gmail or Yahoo or any of those big domains, now we're not getting the rest of our content out. So yes, you may have pushed this one thing, but if we can sell that camp out with only sending it to 10,000 people and not sending it to 50, then let's send it to those 10 that we know want it. And we're not hurting the rest of the database by sending it to the 50,000. So I think it's really educating. I think a lot of people don't know. They think like, hey, you can just click send and send as many as you want, to your point. But if you can really educate them and show kind of that trend of, hey, we're getting a little high on a certain number, we've got to scale back a little bit. And it's not for just you, like we're not saying no to you, but we're saying yes to the organization, yes to the protection of our domain, and making sure that we're able to reach fans through all the domains. So it's really, I think, an education piece.
And so part of that education piece, I should say, is not only advising them, giving them strategy advice on best practice on what to send, but then also how you go about like reporting and sort of, proving and sort of tapping the sign and say, see, I told you this and this is what happened. So what do you sort of do from a reporting point of view to as part of that education piece to say, this is why this works, whether it's, open rates, click through, revenue driven, what's the important part from a reporting point of view for you?
Yeah, I mean, so we try to really think ahead. So anytime we're doing, especially multi-channel marketing, we're tracking it. So if we're going to try something, we're always going to have a tracking link. If we have to wait to send an hour later or 2 hours later to get a tracking link, we're going to track. So our biggest thing is making sure we can track. I want to be able to, at the end of a campaign that marketing is running, even though we're not in the marketing department, I want to make sure we're supporting their campaigns. And if they're running one multi-channel, we need to make sure that we can track, hey, these buys came here, these buys came here, and have it tested. I think a lot of people they just go so fast, they don't think through it. And then at the end, they're like, oh, well, what worked? And you have no idea because you use the same link for everything. So we're very intentional. I think probably in the last 3 or 4 years, we just really shifted over to everything has to be tracked. And that way we can deliver those results later. Because it's almost impossible if you just throwing stuff out there.
No, exactly. Yeah. The ticketing launch went well, and you don't know whether it was social or a QR code on a billboard or a radio announcement with a link, and so everyone goes to success, but then you're back to square one of what worked. Are there tools that have helped, streamline that process, make those kind of things easier, as opposed to, maybe a few years ago it was all in an Excel spreadsheet and people were creating links and sending them out? Has there been some sort of automation or tools that have helped in that process?
I will say the help of QR codes use in general across the whole world has helped a lot. So just people knowing how to use them, figuring out you don't have to have an app. I mean, something as simple as that. A lot of people thought I have to have some type of QR code reader. No, you just pull out your phone. So the more that those were used helped a ton, because it's like scan this QR code and everybody knows how to do it. I do think in general, it's just having a team and communicating. Again, it goes back to educating. We have a pretty young marketing team, so getting them on the same page of saying, hey, this is how you do it, walking them through, making sure that everybody knows, and having that connected goal of being able to report later. I think that's kind of, to me, is the biggest piece, is educating. So again, I've been there a long time, being able to make sure that we're leading kind of the charge on making sure that data is the base before you run. You want to have that foundation. So I think it's, again, I just think it goes back to educating the team on why we're doing it.
I mean, that comms piece is so important. Like you said, yes, someone else is rushing to get it out because they want to make that sale or get those tickets on sale. And it's like, getting your staff to take a beat to check those things, make sure that link is there and it can be tracked, because there's nothing worse than the sending it. It's like, oh, wrong, mistyped, or, there's a typo, tested, or it's the wrong time. It's like, so testing is super important. But one of the, so talking about, strategy is awesome, but sometimes it's execution where the big wins are. And there's been so much, enhancements and tweaks in email. When you look at it, 10 years ago, it was just like, here's an email and some block text and maybe an image of sorts and a button that had to be a certain size that you hope people clicked. Whereas now there's far more personalizations and changing, customizing it depending on how you do it. Have there been some execution wins, whether they're really big and rolling out some tech in there, or just something simple like, putting a simple emoji in the headline that some worries and makes things skyrocket, that have worked for you recently?
Yeah, I think for us, we're really focusing, and I know everybody's saying it for like 10 years, focusing on mobile. Everybody's opening on mobile. So even if you have this beautiful jersey picture, but like you can't see the whole jersey on the phone, then you have a problem, right? So we're working on mobilization, making sure that things are stacking. I think one thing that was kind of old school email, you'd see like all these tiny images and you're sitting there like zooming in on your phone. Well, now you can stack them. You can stack the code. So really thinking not only like what it's going to look on your desktop and having everybody look at it, but hey, let's look at it on our phone. Should we stack this? Should we, is it 4 across here, but then it's 4 all the way down, or is it 2? Really thinking through that. I personally think color blocking blocking is a really kind of newer thing. I think some people did like the whole background color one, but being able to really color block and think almost more of like a graphic designer brain of what the email looks like, I feel like is really pushing emails into a whole different look and feel now with some ability with some GIFs and things like that. Whereas before they took forever to load, we're all on a higher, faster internet. So I think we're kind of moving into these almost more like graphic designs than more of an email. And so I think we're really, email in general right now is kind of going that direction. And so you can really tell the people that are focusing on that and really putting a keen eye to what this looks like, and then ones that aren't. And so I think to me, it's really thinking through and we get our whole graphic design team involved. We have an animation person. I mean, they're really thinking through like what that looks like as you scroll down on your phone, because it is probably 90% looking at their phone.
Yeah, and it is really important because, you're sitting there on your laptop or on your desktop all day and you're designing something, and it's the same for the people who are doing the social. It's like, that's great. You're seeing it on a big screen. What does it look like in your hand? Right. Mm-hmm. Can it be read? Can it be read by an older demographic that is on Instagram or pulling out their iPhone? So I think that color blocking and that almost social mediaization of email, like it's far more snackable. I don't have to read too much. It's nice and pretty. It sends a really single message, whereas, emails many years ago might have had 5 articles and a heading and some text and then a read more. And now it's just like, no, here's a big image. Click on it if you want to read about it, and here's an offer. It is something that has changed. Are you like me? Where do you look for inspiration? Are you subscribed to far too many sports teams' emails?
I actually subscribe to far too many emails in general. I actually find a lot of my email ideas not from sports. I think that there's some amazing marketing minds out there. And so I follow, like the gambit. It could be car related. It's shopping, all that, like literally food Joints, quick service restaurant, like doesn't matter. I'm like, sign up. I sign up for all the rewards programs. Because you can even surveys, they send like a thank you survey. I'm like, I'm going to take it. I'm going to figure out what they're doing that maybe we can take even like little bits out of. So really, I could sign up for sports teams, but I know a lot of them, right? So like I could call them up and say, hey, what are you doing for your post-game survey? But I'm not doing the post-game order at Panda Express or I don't know, wherever else, right? Like, yeah. So I actually like non-sports related content that I can kind of look at and get ideas from more than sports teams.
Yeah, most definitely. You've got, food and customer service and other entertainment brands that are doing different things, and they don't have the same cadence that sports does of it's another game and here's another ticket and that kind of thing. And it is a case of I'm signing up just because I want to see what they send me after I've signed up and what that customer journey is going to look like. On customer journeys, like people will tackle them at the start and say, here's what we've got to do. You're in the off season now. Is there a process that you go through to review those customer journeys, whether they're the key ones you've got going, like reviewing them? How can they be tweaked? Is there a refresh that's needed, as well as looking at potentially new ones?
Yeah, so we have 2 that run all the time. So normal welcome, kind of Thunder Insider journey, and then our merch journey. Those 2 we do refresh on a yearly basis. We're actually looking at maybe making them more like monthly, but it would be pieces, right? So we want to have kind of interchangeable pieces is what I'm calling them, where it's like every month we plug in a new little merch thing on the merch journey, or, so that you don't have ski caps in the middle of the summer and you don't have city jerseys that aren't really available, or they launched 9 months ago, right? So we want to change it up a little bit. And so we're kind of thinking of this almost like interchangeable graphics where you can come up with them and just change them each month. But yes, definitely update each year. You don't want to be welcomed to the same welcome more than once. And we all know, like, you forget your email, or you change jobs and you sign up with a different one, and then you're going through the same thing. You're like, I saw all this. You want to make it fresh. And then we have new programs. We have Rookies Club, which is a youth program that we added this year. It was not in our journey, so we're getting that added. So you always want to just keep it fresh. We are going to do kind of a little bit of a update in general on just like look and feel. I think to what I said earlier, I just think trying to get some little gifts in there and fun things that just kind of catches people's eyes, and maybe do, per your point earlier with the emojis, like maybe do some subject testing. That we haven't done that. We just kind of like went with our journey, and we're like, hopefully that sticks. So maybe some subject testing in there, so that we're actually maybe a couple months of subject testing, where the rest of the month of the year, then we'll use the whatever wins. But I do think we could learn a little bit there. I think we just kind of like went and hoped that it would work. And then, yeah, just trying to figure out other avenues. Is it concerts that are nearby, or kind of like different lists like that? Or is it a youth journey? Like we're kind of exploring what the next step might be. But definitely want to refresh them and keep them hyped and new.
And so one of the other things around a list is to have it engaged. And so part of that is, if people do drop off, it's like, how do you re-engage them? Is that a journey that you look to, trigger of, oh, Sean hasn't opened an email in 6 months, we need to, send him something out? Is that something that you're looking to, keep your list engaged with, some sort of either a journey or a trigger that kicks off something there?
Yeah, so we do some kind of cleanup database, things like that. We're like, hey, it's been a little bit, do you want to stick around? I do think, especially with things like merch, which are very easy to tell, like, hey, you haven't bought something, like they're very concrete numbers. We could do a little bit better to try to figure out a kind of an automated thing for that. But in general, I think it's hard, because we do see a lull, right? Like during the off season, people aren't quite as engaged. So we kind of try to think through that really, really, really timely. So it's like, hey, we don't want to ask them in the middle of summer, like, you want to stay? Because they may be like, nah, not right now. I'll check back in later. So we really try to make sure that we're thinking through the schedule. So it's right as the season's starting. Hey, are you into it? Do you want to be here? Because you don't want to ask in the middle of summer. It's like, oh, the season just ended. Yep. We don't want to,
So it's not something that's ongoing and evergreen. It's sort of season launch and when you're big games, to make sure you're pulling those people in.
Yeah, we want to make sure we're not asking at weird times, or to your point, it's automated, where it like comes awkwardly after a loss, or something where you're like, that's a little weird. So we want to make sure that it's on our schedule. So we do it, but we do it like when we want to, and when we think it feels right to ask.
So I just want to ask and sort of get a bit of a rundown of your tech stack and some of the key tools that you use every day. You're running on Microsoft Dynamics and using Eloqua, but what are some of the tools that you're using on a daily, weekly basis?
Yeah, so we have so many. I'm trying to think. So Eloqua.
Well, I mean, that's all right. I can show you that infographic of, I think it's now at 8,000 tools that you can have in, the marketing and the tech and CRM space. 10 years ago, it was like 112 tools, and now I think it's up to 8,000 tools. So it can be a long question, but yeah, what are some of the key tools that you're using on a daily basis?
I was trying to think. Yeah. So we have Pylytics is a tool we're using that connects to CRM and our warehouse. We do also use for email. We use something called Nifty Images, which is, it just kind of makes some cool, it like personalizes them and puts your name and be like Sean on the back of a jersey or something like that. So kind of some stuff like that. Man, I'm trying to think. We use Tableau as our like big as our main images for like reporting. And I'm like, I live in CRM. That's like where my brain is going right now. I dabble a little bit with the metadata, trying to figure out some stuff there. So Facebook and LinkedIn, Zoom info if we're doing B2B, to try to target B2B. Man, out of all questions, this is what's stumping me. I'm like, where do I live in every day? Those are kind of like the main ones that I stay. Oh, Spinzo is a newer one for ticketing, that I'm kind of getting into a little bit. So it's like offers, like different type of ticket offers, kind of creative offers. Fivo, so I can work with them a little for ticket offers. So many.
So a lot of them are plugging into that ticketing equation. You sort of said you're working with Meta. Is there stuff that you're doing to working with your paid team to target your list with the sort of complementing or augmenting what you're doing from an email point of view, or maybe that's also a way to keep your folks engaged?
Yeah. So, and it's what we talked about earlier with where are we targeting the people, right? So if my email doesn't hit well, say we send it out and it's like, yeah, that didn't do what we wanted. Can we use that same list to now target on email? Because it was a good list. It's the right people, but they're not opening, which means, hey, let's get them somewhere else. So I work really closely with the paid social team and trying to, Google search, Meta, like I said, LinkedIn, any of those where we can really try to connect with these people in a different way. And then again, report back to see what works. But I definitely think that that's one where we kind of, it's more retargeting for me. Like she's the brains of the operation with all the actual Meta fields. But yeah, as far as being able to use lists and retarget or target at the same time, right? Like if we know this is a hot lead per like Pilotics, which I said earlier, it's like, hey, we got to jump on this. Let's hit them from all angles and see which one hits. So just knowing time is of the essence. Like the rep may not be able to get to them right away. Let's try to hit them somewhere else and make sure that we're keeping their attention and grabbing their data or their information or what they're interested in. Even if that rep can't call this week or this in the next 2 weeks, we can try to hit them up somewhere else.
Yeah, I was talking to one strategy. One of the teams we work with was for any activations and trying to drag in more new to file, which you run a competition. And you've got lots of your own fans that will always enter your competitions, but you don't sort of need them. So you'll do the email out and say the competition's on, then you'll put it on social and tell the competition's on, but then you'll only advertise to people who aren't on your list. And so you just get new to file, and that's what that's where the paid goes to say, oh, send it to people who aren't on our list yet. And so it's a really good strat. But you need to have all of those pipes and those data lists connected appropriately, so you're getting good efficient spend in that case.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're definitely wanting to not hit the same people, and then to your point, being able to exclude. So I think it's always great to be like, hey, match, but that exclude list can really help you out a lot.
Definitely. Recently, like we said, we caught up at Seat in Las Vegas, and other than an awesome custom shoe design, what were some of your key takeaways?
Yeah, every time I go to Seat, my key takeaway, which I said earlier, is networking. That's where I meet the people that I can email on a daily basis, weekly basis, say, I got this problem. What are you doing for this? And so to me, it's networking. I love learning and getting ideas, and I come back with a lot of great ideas, but I do think just having those connections and being able to reach out to people when you need that help is just the underlying foundation of that conference, and being able to just have that network of people that you can rely on.
I mean, you're in the NBA, and the NBA is very good at working collegiately among the teams. You catch up with other NBA colleagues at their marketing meetings or their data meetings, but at Seat you get that. Oh, I'm talking to someone at the NHL, or I'm talking to someone at the NFL. That is the advantageous part of most conferences.
Well, and a lot of times you go to like an Eloqua conference, for an example, and it's all these things that I'm like not allowed to do. I'm like, well, I can't do that, and I can't do that, and because we have this kind of bigger, NBA and teams and players and all these other things. So it's like, in some ways, I can't connect with them. I'm like, well, that doesn't work. Or they use, to your point earlier, which I blanked on our tech stack completely, but like, they don't have the same tech stacks, or they have a team of 40 people, which sounds amazing. But I'm like, well, at the time, I'm like, I'm a team of one. How does one person do all those great things that you're saying? And so I think being able to be with teams that have a similar not only department structure, but a tech stack, different things like that. Yes, there's NBA teams with similar tech stacks, but I can meet an NHL team or something where I'm like, oh, you have Eloqua and Microsoft and Core and all, like, I can just go down the line. I'm like, oh, we have all the same stuff. We should hang out. Like, let's do a monthly call, where we can actually just connect over and over and over. And I always laugh because I have a group where it's like the group. I'm like, we have the same stuff. Tell me what you're doing with this. Like, does it connect to all the things I need? And it's just this long email chain. I don't even know what the subject is. I'm just like, does this work? Are you doing it? So, and I mean, that's priceless.
And I mean, and it comes down to what you started the conversation with is networking and, finding like-minded people, finding people in like-minded tech stacks or like-minded markets. OKC is a really unique market in the US, but are there other markets that are like it? Because, what you're trying to do in OKC, would be completely different to someone's trying to do it in New York or LA, because it's just a completely different, market size and those kind of things.
Oh, for sure. For sure. It's a whole different marketing plan. I mean, we have very different, the Magic and us have very similar tech stacks, but I'm like, you're doing tourist single game tickets, like every game, like that's your like bread and butter, right? Because everybody's there for Disney and they go to a Magic, like it's like bing, 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 bing. And that's not the same for Oklahoma City, although hopefully one day it will be. But yeah, for us, it's the long-term goal. It's the legacy, it's the building the season ticket member base. Those are the things that are our goals. And so there's very different goals, but do they still have great ideas? And we can use some of them, yes, but there are, to your point, of like, those are totally different lanes when you're talking strategy.
And then from a data point, you sort of just touched on it there. Teams have very different, I guess, strategies on how they're going to fill their stadium. Like how many are season tickets, how many are single tickets, how many are on group plans. Is that something that like has evolved and, you've really had to dive into the data to sort of help set what that looks like for the Thunder?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, it's kind of led by how well the sales go. So if sales are going well, then we're like, oh well, that's the direction we're going. And if they're not, then that's where you get that creative. It's okay, like what's next? Is it groups? Is it single game? Like where do we want to put our time and our resources? But it's kind of led by sales. So if the fans want season tickets, then season tickets is where we're going. And I think you kind of have to follow that. It's that whole, like, try to put a square peg in a round hole, right? Like if you're trying to do something that the data and the fans aren't telling you is right, then it's never going to work. And so you kind of have to like flow and ebb and flow with what they're wanting.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, I spoke recently with the Sydney Kings, and because they had a slightly smaller venue, they actually really de-emphasized season tickets because they wanted to get more people in, and it ended up being getting more return per seat. But also, if they had have sold out their season ticket, which they could have had the whole stadium sold, then it limits their database. And so it's those kind of equations that are always front of mind when you're trying to fill a stadium.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think you have to be able to have all of those. Like you want that basketball team of kids, per what we talked about earlier with youth, to bring the whole basketball team and come to the game. Like you want to have that growth where you have those moments. But yeah, you want to have a whole bunch of season ticket members too, right? Like that's amazing. But yeah, you have to have kind of that good balance. And then you have hospitality things and events that you can host. But yeah, anything to build the database and create those moments so that you are creating that legacy. That's kind of bigger goal than just fill the stadium at that time.
Most definitely. Well, Dani, I really do appreciate you coming on. I want to get to the Sports Geek closing 5. Do you remember the first sports event you ever attended?
So does it have to be professional or like my own?
It can be whatever you say because no one can Google it. And
That's fair.
It can
That's
be
fair.
Yeah.
So I played t-ball and softball and all of that growing up. But I grew up an Arkansas Razorback fan. And so I would say going to those basketball and football games growing up as a little kid, I knew how to call the Hogs. If you've never heard that, Sean, you should look it up. It's very loud. And so it was definitely probably an Arkansas game, if not my own, because I love playing big softball and baseball player over here. So I was, you can't tell from this video, I'm a little vertically challenged. So basketball was never going to be my thing. But that's okay. I love it. It just was never going to be where I was going to go in playing. But yeah, a Razorbacks game for sure in college.
Yes, no problems. And you would have been a lot of sports events. Do you have a favorite food or a go-to food at a sports event?
So I'm kind of a sweet tooth. So really anything sweet, to be honest with you, but like a box of Sour Patch Kids, like I feel like you just can't go wrong. Like a good box of Sour Patch Kids from or if it's like an ice cream stand that has Sour Patch Kids that you can put on ice cream, like I'd be pretty much anything like sour gummies, something like that, trolleys, all about it.
Terrific. What's the first app you open in the morning?
So I work out in the morning. So it's probably, I don't know if it counts on your watch, but it's like I track my workout. It's probably the first thing that I do. So I wake
That's
up.
Fine. That's
unless you count like turning off my alarm, but like turn off my alarm, get to the gym, track my workout. So that's when I have time to do it.
That's fine. Is there someone that the podcast listeners should give a follow, whether it be an author or a colleague that's doing great things or someone that you know that they should give a follow, and why?
So I would say, this is my own personal plug, any women in sports page you can follow. I think just getting it out there. I know that there are a lot of us now, but obviously if we can support any more of them and getting them into sports, I feel like little girls look up to us and they think like, a lot of them think they can't be in it because it's a guy's thing. And I think just there's a lot of like Instagrams and podcasts and different things that you can follow and support those. And that just helps little girls know that they can grow up and do the same thing.
Most definitely. And tell us a little bit, because you're in part of the women in sports at the Thunder. Right. What do you do there? What you sort of mentioned it there, but what are some of the key things that you're doing as part of that group?
Yeah. So really just celebrating the months too, right? Like we have Women's Month. There's actually a Girls and Women's and Sports Day. That is in, I think it's like February, or it changes. I can't remember the exact date. And so just like the awareness, right? Making sure that I have 3 girls. So making sure that they see that I work there. I tell them all the time, like I work for the Thunder. And so then they go tell their friends, and inevitably the boys are like, no, she doesn't. She does not. I'm like, and my kids, yes, she does. She does. So it is interesting now that especially they're getting a little older and kind of understand it. But yeah, just really trying to highlight it. So even if it's just looking at the marketing materials and saying like, hey, let's pick a different photo that's got some women love in it too, so really just kind of doing that and recognizing those holidays so that everybody feels recognized at the organization.
And especially, in the math science space, I did a IT degree and I think there was 40 people in it, and we were, I think it had 15 women in that, and that was a high amount in when I did the uni. But there is now, and I've been lucky enough to have a lot of amazing women on the podcast that are in that data analytics space. So it's something that. Yeah, and I'm happy to point to all the guests that I've had as other inspiration, but totally agree. Lastly, I wanted to ask you, what social media platform is your MVP?
I'm big Instagram. I love Instagram. I could scroll it all day. I love Reels. I think it's just seamless. It's also less words. It's faster. It's my thing.
Yeah, most definitely. Sometimes you just don't want to be doing any reading, and you just want to be flicking, and you want to be catching up with what all your friends are doing and what they want to keep going and what they're up to. Lastly, if there are people who have listened to this podcast and want to reach out to you, what is the best way to do so?
Yeah, I'd say connect with me on LinkedIn. I try to be on there the most. Instagram, I'm always on Instagram. Clearly, I just said that. But yeah, Instagram, LinkedIn. My email, I have a lot of mentors, and they all say the same thing. everybody can make 15 minutes. So if you need 15 minutes, like I can find 15 minutes. And I think that, again, going back to networking, like that is the way to get in. And if that's the 15 minutes that you need, or the 15 minutes that somebody needs, I think that we can all give back, especially to anybody looking to get into the sports industry, or just youth in general trying to better themselves and get to their goals.
Most definitely. And I'll quote Seats Josh Barney is intention. If you're gonna reach out to someone like Dani for that 15 minutes, have some intention, like, I want to know this, or I want to know what technology you're using, or what things I should be studying. Because then it's far easier, then it's a really easy 15 minutes for you. Like you can answer that question. Whereas if you get someone, I want to talk to you, and they get on the phone, they go, cool, just tell us everything. It's like, if you don't, you've still got to put in some of that work if you do reach out. And, people like yourself are very generous with your time, both on this podcast, but then putting out that offer. I always make sure, if you're listening to this, don't waste the time. Both yours and Dani's. It's really because I'll make an impression. Like, you get to make an impression with that question. And I'm sure your question that you asked 11 or so years ago, that helped you get to the job.
100%. Yeah. Going up and thanking him to speak. If I hadn't done that, I may have never ran into him again, and would have a very different life today.
Well, thank you very much, Dani. I look forward to catching you sometime. I would love to come to an Oklahoma City Thunder game, even though there is no more Josh Giddey, recently traded. I would have loved to have seen. So, short fact, I don't know if I probably told you, I actually know Josh Giddey's dad. So Josh Giddey's dad played for the Melbourne Tigers, and that was the team that I cheered on in the 90s. So, yeah, so I know Josh's junior team and his dad, and all of the, Josh Giddey's dad played with Ben Simmons' dad. So it was a absolute NBA factory there at the Melbourne Tigers. So unfortunately, he's no longer at the Oklahoma City Thunder, but really enjoyed watching him there.
Oh, a lot of fun. And you can just point out that you hung that for me, because you had to have it there when we were chatting.
No, exactly. And proudly have it. Like, I didn't buy it specifically, had it there, just needed to hang it up. So thanks very much, Dani, and look forward to catching up with you soon.
Thank you so much.
Looking to help your digital or sponsorship team? Book in for a Pick My Brain session with Sean Callanan to help your team level up. Book now at sportsgeekhq.com/pickmybrain.
Thanks again to Dani Brown. Please connect with her on LinkedIn. I will have linked and tagged her in my post for this episode, or reach out to her, as she said, on Instagram. Remember, you can find all the links to what was discussed today, and links to Dani, in the show notes. You can always find the show notes at sportsgeekhq.com/387, being the episode number. I really love talking to data geeks like Dani from OKC. Data is and remains to be one of the biggest assets in sports. It's so important. That your whole team, digital, marketing, operations, have a focus to drive more data, because that provides more insights. And as we discussed in this episode, email remains the killer app. I started Sports Geek with the motto, connecting teams, fans, and sponsors using technology. Email remains the number one opportunity in technology to do that. And there still is so much upside, as we discuss on this podcast, and many more. Everyone's on their CRM journey, and every little tweak can make a difference to both the fan engagement point of view and deepening your ties to your fans, but also from a revenue point of view, selling more tickets, getting more cheeks in the seats. So if you would like help with your team, to give them a data focus, to understand how to organise your team, how to organise your workflow to maximise those data returns across your digital and your commercial activations, please reach out. I'd love to help you. Sean at sportsgeekhq.com is how you can reach me, or you can just simply go to sportsgeekhq.com/phone call and set up a time to chat. Until next episode, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
Do you get Sports Geek news? Sean Callanan analyzes the latest sports business articles for you weekly. Sign up at sportsgeekhq.com. Want to help drive more revenue from your digital efforts? Book a time for a call. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/phone call.